Welcome everyone, my name is TJ Callahan, and I am Thomas and Dutch. Okay. Thank you for being here today.
Who's the Dutch?
Dutch is my Irish partner, his real name is Ferdinand. Dutch was the college name. Of course it makes sense, right? So, thank you, I'm thrilled to have you here today. And thanks to Paul, because Paul has been a tremendous resource to us over the past 3 years. As we evolved from farmhouse, as the hotel was closed, open, as we bounced through, no one in downtown Chicago, Northwestern University shut down, open, partially open, re-shut down, all that. Paul has been a constant resource, and he was the key in helping us navigate getting the amazing sidewalk cafe that we have out there now, which has been a concept for us. So, Thomas and Dutch is trying to do something a little different than what you had in downtown Evanston before. I think you all know what's been going on at Wilmette, where you've got a sense of place, where you have all these high-volume restaurants doing $9, $10, $12 million kinds of numbers. I know what the numbers are for those restaurants. Just to give you a sense of how big those numbers are, I've been told in the past that Farmhouse was among the highest grossing restaurants in the city of Evanston. And the best we ever did was 4. So those restaurants up there doing $8, $10, and $12 million are taking money out of the pockets of your businesses here in Evanston. I mean, so what we're trying to do with Thomas and Dutch is really up our game. Farmhouse was great for what it was for while it was here. But we felt that there was opportunity for a much more polished, much more upscale restaurant here in Evanston. And we took advantage of the opportunity created by the pandemic to shut down and rebrand the restaurant as hopefully something much nicer than what Farmhouse was. And I loved Farmhouse, but I couldn't eat any more cheese curds. So at any rate, thanks so much for being here. If you need anything, just let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is approval of the meeting minutes. Motion,
I'm so moved.
Second.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting minutes are accepted. Then our next item is public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment?
You here for public comments?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
You can start.
welcome, Catherine Gotze.
Hi, I'm Catherine Gotzik. I am the Executive Director of the Maintenance for Mile, but I'm actually here with only half of that hat on. I am also here as a person who has a stake in all of this, especially the Evanston Thrive stuff. And as a person who in my former life had a large experience in event planning and basically what Evanston Thrives wants to do, destination management. And so I wanted to come with only half of my hat on and talk with the other half. And number one, with the prioritization grid that you've got, I looked it over. What a project. It's amazing everything that's on there. I would urge speed of implementation. The more that we can do this quickly, the better that we can take advantage of it. And I will tell you that with my management hat on, it would be very welcomed by the businesses. Number 2, the grid is great, but I was a little discouraged to see just the tiniest portion of it at around events, and almost all of it around infrastructure for events. And I would encourage you to reframe the opportunities that you can take this dollar and use it to generate dollars. If there were ways to create events that filled hotel rooms, created liquor tax, sales tax, like that's an opportunity that you have with this dollar, which kind of leads into my third point, which is never before in my life have I ever seen anything that kind of begged for oversight, continuity, cohesion And having a single person who was around destination management for Evanston would be able to serve as a liaison between economic development, parks and recs events, public works for placemaking, at Northwestern, like all of the different things that require kind of a treetop view and a lot of connecting and knowing left hand and right hand situation. I believe that this opportunity is one for that. And really that's all I had. I have lots more thoughts. I don't know that any of them are ready for a public meeting, but if anybody would like to talk to me about this, I just feel like this time is a really important time for economic development and for Evanston Thrives. And I hope that it doesn't just take this $3 million and we sink it, and it's gonna be great for a generation and then it'll require doing again. Like, really make this a seed where you plant. I believe one of the things in the Evanston Thrives report was that the city has some core competencies and placemaking isn't one of them. And to really elevate that and add it to Evanston's many tools that make it very attractive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have someone else? Have anyone else for public comment?
That's it.
All right, so let's move on to our agenda for items for consideration. Someone like to move item 4A.
Second?
So I believe we have a presentation.
Ready to vote.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is our annual
Yes.
request. I think this is tradition where Councilmember Usma says he's ready to vote, so.
Respectfully, would you like to say anything?
I have a 47-page presentation of everything we've done in the last year. We now have 11 communities. We have going into our fiscal year, which started July 1st with a $3.3 million budget. We've gotten a lot of county funding, new state funding in addition to our regular operational grants. So we're bigger and doing more than ever. I went through it, I think, in detail in the presentation. I'm happy and love questions. Yes. Oh, sorry, I don't know, I called it.
Go ahead.
Yes. So, if you can, kind of pull out and talk about some of the Evanston specific numbers and, number of social media hits for Evanston specific events or, number of visitors that you all attract since.
Well, I don't have it like that. I mean, I do have, we don't, we calculate the campaigns and every post that we do, and every post that we do on social media is paid, but we don't separate it by our communities, so we don't do that. But I would say that out of our 11 communities, it's not that everyone is divided equal. Evanston has by far the most content and the most going on of our communities. I would say that about 25% of what we post on a daily, weekly basis is Evanston based. If you just scroll our feed right now, you can see that. Again,
That doesn't have more going on at Evanston?
what?
Well, that doesn't have more going on?
No, but supposedly the restaurant scene is so great, but you know what? There's not that many, I don't know, Wilmette, there's not that many restaurants. If you add up all the seats there, it's probably 2 of your biggest restaurants, so I always think that's overblown. It's just visually, I guess, enticing.
There's a cluster of.
There's a cluster, and guess, they were redoing the streetscape there like 10 years ago. It was in a plan. They were lucky that it was during COVID, so that when COVID was over, they had this beautiful thing. They didn't plan that. That just happened. Okay, I'm just saying that's how it went down. But
I remember.
huh? Yes. Again, they don't have. So I was just talking, to TJ, and the ballroom here just reopened. It's been closed since the beginning of COVID, not because they had a water break there and they didn't have the money and the ownership didn't repair it. So it's just opening. There's a conference here now. He said his bar is filled. All those, for the last 3 years, every conference and convention that needed meaningful space like this ballroom has, went to Skokie and Northborough. This is huge for the city that this is reopened. He's got a conference here, they're booking tons of business now. I mean, this is what you need here because people that have a conference here are eating, shopping, and being out in the community. The city's really missed that in the last 3 years, and the business has gone outside of the city. So I just, and about 60% of what we do is meetings and group sales. Yes, the social media and all that is nice, but really our salespeople are out, like they're in Vegas right now at C-Vent Connect, one of the biggest meeting places. My salespeople have over 120 appointments with meeting planners that come to our area. I mean, that's really the nuts and bolts of what we do, but most people see the leisure things that we do.
And one last question. I have asked in the past for this, specifically with understanding that the bread and butter of what you all do is the conventions. I'd love to see in the future Evanston-specific numbers. How many, what is the result of that for Evanston?
Well, with our county grant that we are gonna have a new platform from Tourism Economics that will be able to show where people come from different points. We have points of interest identified in Evanston, all the merchant districts, and not just the SSAs, but all the different merchant districts. We have Howard Street, Central Street, West Town identified. We have Northwestern, and we have the Dawes House, the beaches, all these different points of interest. We'll be able to see where people are coming from, like from 5 miles, 10 miles, 20 miles, what they did before they came here, what they did after, like how many people go to Wrigley Field and stay here. We're gonna be able to have that data. So, I can show it to you next year for sure. I can probably do an update sooner than that. We're launching it at the end of August. And then it tells you the credit card spend, it tracks everything by mobile phone. So we're gonna have data that we never had before in terms of, because it's not only who does see a social media post, but who came to town because of that, and what percentage of people are coming here from other areas, and how do you grow that? If you think people are eating now in Wilmette or Winnetka, and we started a baseline, what are you doing through Evanston Thrives and other things to get people to make this the dining capital again? Like all these things are doable with data.
That would be very interesting to see.
It's gonna be fascinating. I haven't been trained on it yet, but it's $50,000 a year. I could never afford it, the Bureau could never afford it, but our county grant is paying for it. So, it's really exciting for us.
Wonderful. I have a quick question. There was $82,000 in the budget for this. The requests were just under $70,000.
Right.
I can explain.
Yeah, Gina, Ms. Steckman will explain, but.
Right, great that you're under budget.
No, but it's not forever.
Okay.
So, in FY19, your dues are around $83,000. When COVID hit, we reduced every city's fees by 50% because, because of what happened. And then our board, read data that we weren't gonna fully recover until 2025, especially in the meeting space. So they voted to, after 2 years at 50%, to get back to whole in FY25 by increasing it a third the 3 years, to let the cities catch up in their collections and whatnot. So this is the last year of the reduced amount, and then next year we go back to what we got in FY19.
So an extra 13, whatever, $12,000 we can use.
Correct.
Oh, he's used it the last couple of years, okay.
Right.
So this has been moved and seconded. Any other questions?
Just one question. Just back to the social media analytics. If the post is Evanston specific, you should be able to get analytics just on that post about Evanston.
Yes.
Or whether you do that or not is another question. But if
Correct.
it is specific, if the post is specific to Evanston, you should be able to get that.
Correct.
And is that included or?
No,
Okay.
I mean, I would have to get another staff person to just do that, and all my staff people are out selling our area, not doing that, and no other community asked me for it. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate ask, it's just a choice we made when we became a regional bureau, to not be reporting to every community separately. I'd have to have somebody just do that.
Yeah.
We're regional, but Evanston has the most events, the most happening. Again, I understand it would be easier to see in a report, but if you just scroll through our feed, you'd see that Evanston has more content than any other community by far.
Yeah, I think the analytics just help to know what people are most interested in, and then how many sales are resulted from clicks from those
Yes.
ads specifically. And that's just one thing that you can do. There are others. That also leads me to another question about there's a sales team that goes out to book conferences for spaces in Evanston, all over, but in Evanston as well,
Yes.
on your staff, right?
Yes, what happens is, because our fiscal year just started, we produce a trade show calendar, and it shows everywhere we're going. Some are local, regional, national. And we presented that to our hotel committee last week, as a matter of fact, and we pay for the booth, we pay for everything, and hotels come with us. So they look at the calendar, and they don't have to pay they have to just pay to get there, but most of them are paying. Like the Hilton will be staying in a Hilton, so they're not even paying for that. But we pay all the fees, and they tell our salespeople, okay, we are budgeting to go to these 8 shows with you. And they choose to go, which if they didn't have a bureau, they would never be able to afford to go to these shows on their own. And just so you know, we only go to trade shows where it's bookable for us. We book we don't book conventions. We're 50 to 300 people. We book 80% of our meetings are from a 300-mile radius. So we only really go to and meet with people who automatically, just before we talk to them, meet our demographics. If they want a big convention center, we don't have that. Like, we don't meet with people that don't fit with what we can book.
But your sales team is responsible for booking at least some small group meetings.
They don't book. What
Okay.
they do is they go out, and once somebody says, yes, I'm interested in coming to Evanston, we send out a lead, okay? And the hotels then, because it's anti-trade, we can't negotiate that. They go and they respond, because we don't know their availability,
Right.
what their rates are, how many rooms they can give. Like, for example, this hotel has 269 rooms. Well, they might have 50 on hold and, set with Northwestern or something. So they don't have 269 to give. So only they know all those details, and we're not allowed to negotiate rate, that's literally against the law. But there's not a hotel that is in a bureau area that is not part of their bureau, because they need our leads. Now, they all have their own sales teams, and those people are out and about selling, okay? We bring them incremental business. We work very closely with the hotel salespeople. We're not here to send them a piece of business that they already have,
Right.
or that they have contacts with. We are there to go to places and bring people here that they might have gone to Chicago and Rosemont, but like, what do you got? Why should I come here? And that's what we bring.
And not saying it's in here, doesn't necessarily need to be here this time, but more so for next time, and maybe it is in here, I just flipped through it and didn't see it. Are you able to figure out how many leads your team generates?
Yes,
And how many close?
We don't do that, because that would count on the hotels telling us all the time when they book business, and they don't, for their own reasons, not because of us, because salespeople want to take credit for what we send them, and we don't get in that.
But you could track leads.
We know exactly how many
Okay.
leads we send, and then the hotels really track it on their own too.
Okay. And is that in here, the amount of leads?
No, I didn't, we do.
I would say that's one
I
thing.
can add it,
You can add
because
it
we have the
next time,
sales
yeah.
report, we have the
Perfect.
sales report.
Thank you.
I mean, realize the hotels pay their own dues, so they want a return on their investment, they pay dues also, they track how many leads they get from us.
And understand too, I'm asking these questions because we know anecdotally something's happening and it's working. But I think as fiscal agents of the city, it's always nice to be able to point specifically to what funding is resulting in.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
as we move forward, anything you do to help us tell that story to our constituents and other people would be helpful. So, but thank you for your time, school.
Member Pennisi?
Yes.
Well, it's not, too labor intensive to give the city by city demographics and engagement with all the social media. What might be useful, what might give the information they're asking for is to say, here are the top 25 engaged posts of 2023. And that way we would again know, okay, these were the things that really resonated with people and these things generated a lot of traffic to Evanston sites.
Absolutely, it's always gonna be events first and then restaurant things second. The events are always pretty
I'll
top.
be getting to places. The events.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Thank you.
we'll see you again soon, next before that day.
Yeah, so this will come before the city council at the end of August.
Thank you. And that's the only item we have for action, so tonight we have a number of items for discussion. And
I will move item 5A for discussion, Evanston Parks and Recreation food trips.
yes, second. So, Director
Okay, so we haven't coordinated on how we're gonna present this, so I'll kind of kick it off. So, thank you for the opportunity to bring this before you tonight. We have been trying, to figure out a way to, move forward with not just the lagoon building, and this is something that Councilmember Kelly and I have been working on closely. Recognizing there are five other facilities, and I can name them quickly for you. We include Gibbs Morrison for conversation purposes, Fleetwood, Robert Crown, the Lagoon Building, James Park, and Clark Street each has a concession stand. So there was another one, now I have seven, Levy, right, Levy Center. So the impetus for this really was, why is it taking so long for us to launch a restaurant over the Lagoon Building at the lakefront? And one of the reasons, honestly, is I'm not a food service person. I'm not a facilities manager. I'm not an architect. So as we've been trying to cobble together services that come to the lakefront, while in the meantime, Audrey's team was able to program parks programs in these facilities, it became very apparent that we needed some assistance to do that. And if I may, Councilmember Kelly, the council member had an idea. Is there an opportunity to hire a consultant to perhaps help us move through this process of renovating the kitchens, identifying scheduling, identifying proper food operations? And by the way, we're trying to focus on local business. Like, we don't want to just go to Compass or Levy and hire a master, like a master planner. We want individual businesses who can thrive through this program. So this idea is a derivative of Councilmember Kelly's idea. I went to Director Thompson, and I'll let her take over in just a second. Her thought was, why don't we hire an FTP to do this? There'll be plenty of work for that person. And that's where I want to kind of hand it off to you.
Yes,
Hopefully that wasn't too long ago.
No, thank you so much. Again, Audrey Thompson, I'm the Director for Parks and Recreation for the City of Evanston. Thank you all so much for allowing me to be here to kind of discuss this very important item. So this really came up when I first took this job as the director, and then really just got very disappointed that I was at an event at Robert Crown and couldn't even buy a hot dog and some nachos. And I thought, what a missed opportunity, not just for Robert Crown, but how is it that we flood the area of Lagoon and make it a place for ice skating, but I can't have hot chocolate, spiked or whatever is your flavor. So at that time, we worked on an RFP that's been sitting for some months now because we are not wanting to do one-offs. We like to package this and have the Arrington Lagoon be a part of that. And at the time, we were working to kind of figure out what was going to happen with the lagoon. And so rather than hire a consultant, which is a lot of times what we do best, as hire consultants, I do feel like this is an opportunity for someone to really get in, work with our business districts, our restaurants, and to figure out what restaurants would be appropriate for different spaces. And also to loop in workforce development so that young people or people in general can have some opportunities for employment. We have 3 kitchens that are licensed. That's Robert Crown, Leaving Center, and Fleetwood. And there's no reason why we should not be able to open up those spaces. Robert Crown could be open 7 days a week, literally. And this is an opportunity, if we do it right, to increase our revenue so this program will pay for itself. So that's really it. So I would rather have an FTE to oversee rather than hire a consultant.
But there's one other nuance I want to share. This committee gave approval to move forward with a local business. I think it was a year ago. We are not obligated. There's no contract. There's no lease. It's been a slow roll with that conversation. And we also think now that we're kind of emerging from pandemic impacts, that we think we could get a broader base of local businesses, especially if we had an FTE pushing hard and doing reach out. So we think we can start over and get really high quality responses. Not that San Diego was high quality, but just have a wider range. We had pre-pandemic, we had around 50 businesses in Robert Crown talking about just that space. When we did the RFP during the pandemic, we had 3 responses, one of which was not responsive. So it's really 2. So that's setting the tone. So I'll step back and
Yes, thank you for this. I fully support the idea of bringing on a full-time employee to take on this work. I would also add, I think we need someone just generally to take on the management of all of our rental spaces throughout the city. And so if this is for discussion, so the question is funding for the FTE. And I'm sorry, what is the dollar amount for?
So usually for FTEs, I like to look at about when you look at benefits and what have you, not less than 100.
Yeah.
And we look at what the amount would be for the salary plus adding any benefits that would go along with that. So,
Okay. And what kind of, just curious, what kind of background someone has for this? This seems like pretty particular.
yeah, so they have to have some background with procurement, but then also like food service so that they can, because even our kitchen spaces, the reason why they are licensed is because we do have managers in each one of those facilities that have that particular license. And I don't mean a food handler's license, but an actual manager's license. So we would really need someone who had that because the regulations got changed a bit. And so there has to be a manager on site for any of those food establishments to be there and to be executed on a daily basis. So we would want someone who kind of understands that. And so we have looked at our National Parks and Rec Association and pulled some job descriptions. So we have that, and I'll be ready to present that at our August council.
Yeah.
So, I'm super excited about this. I was excited when you started talking about them, and I shared with colleagues, last weekend I was at Fat Shallot, which is the operator at Gilson Park. There was twinkly lights, I was looking at the beach, there was people, the community was coming together, it had all of the elements, and to the point earlier of like, WillMed is doing some things right that we need to learn and borrow from them. And they are doing that right. So as Evanstonians, we sat around the table and said, why isn't Evanston doing this? And so I guess my question is, we heard from, I think it's Kate, who said, what's the low hanging fruit? Is there an opportunity for proof of concept here? So, we had, Vivek was a strong operator. I haven't seen the proposal. Like, I wanted to sort of tease apart if makes sense to pursue one while the larger program is being stitched together. So that would be, I think my biggest question is there an opportunity to move faster and have a proof of concept on really what is kind of our, I don't know, I would call it our highlight property. It's the opportunity for the most placemaking, if you will. So that's one that I have been keeping an eye on.
So I think a large part of this is some of our spaces are not ready. And so the low hanging fruit is to look at those that are ready
Yep.
and to use those initially. So looking at, Robert Crown as a model, we have concession spaces already built where you have like the kind of garage door opener at the bottom and at the top of the hockey rink. And so those spaces are already built in. And so a large part of what our department will be bringing to council in the next couple of months is also, I know Catherine, did she leave?
Yeah.
So Catherine understands how our special event process goes, pretty antiquated, and so many of our other systems are antiquated as well. And so we need a system that is a recreation system that allows for a person to simply have a way to just take money or credit cards at both of those areas. And so we're looking at a recreation support system right now that would allow us to do that. That system would also be able to allow a person to book a park right from a computer instead of having to get a person on the phone. They can pay for it, secure their permit, and all in one fell swoop. So this brings into the restaurants and how we bill, the orders, how people make an order from their seat at Robert Crown, and they can say where their section is, and that food can be brought to them. So this would all be in that recreation software. And so that's the low hanging fruit, but we do need a system that would be able to accommodate that.
So two final points. I totally get it from the facility viewpoint. Thank you for helping me understand that. From a placemaking viewpoint, I would prioritize, like those, the Levy Center, Fleetwood Jourdain are facilities in and of themselves. They attract the users that are there. To me, they are, they're not the same in terms of a placemaking as we're looking at trying to define our lakefront.
So can I say one thing
Yes,
before
of
that?
course.
So I think we're also talking about concession versus like what we would offer at the Arrington Lagoon.
Yeah.
Which would be different.
Yeah.
And so I think that the Arrington Lagoon and Robert Crown would be the low hanging fruit where we could try both of them at the same time.
Okay.
Right, and I was gonna add, the furniture for Arrington Lagoon is in the warehouse here. Once the repairs are done to the lagoon, it's going to be installed. So we'll be able to start using it. Now, if we can come up with a plan to do one-off, one-day liquor license,
Right.
restaurant wants to do something, we can talk about that, to get the ball rolling. The kitchen itself needs to be.
But there are things that can happen outside
Correct.
that we can do right up, or people can see it from the outside
Yes.
and be able to easily go and enjoy those outside.
That's good, that's good.
I'm just coming down. Okay, all right. Councilman.
Great, thank you. So I want to just clarify the agreement we have with the Minute folks, we're not bound by anything.
There is no agreement. It was a discussion where we agreed to move forward with them, but there's no contract drafted and there's no plan.
Great, because I am in favor of moving forward as soon as we can, but realistically, we're not gonna have somebody move in there and miss something, right? Whether it's, consultant to hire immediately, we take a little bit more time to hire an FTE. And I get the argument that this person, if we hire them as an FTE, will pay for themselves because the revenue will be coming in. How long of it, what's the time frame on that job? Once everything is set up, what's that person gonna do? And
Continue to coordinate, because there'll be
is that gonna be an ongoing job?
It will be. And a part of, in your memo, it talks about like food carts and writing. There are so many opportunities for food carts. I know traditionally, food trucks are not something that our lakefront really wants a lot of time. But if you came to our Starlight concert last week, it was packed and food truck had to leave because it They ran out of food. So there are some opportunities that we are really missing. And the food is the big part, even at the lakefront. And so we think of the lakefront as just something that's seasonal, but our goal in Parks and Rec is to make even our parks year round. There are things that can happen outside year round. And that's what's that?
Like a sauna.
Yes, like the sauna,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that can definitely happen.
So you see this FTE as an ongoing position, not just an acute project, project. Because we also need to be allocating somebody for an event plan to have the optics. And I want to make sure we have enough money to do that.
So it's funny that you talk about like how much money do you need? So I know that the council approves special events every year, and it's just like, hey, these are expensive events, but I don't really fully know if council understands how much those special events cost. And so right now, we are being trained in a system called ViewWorks, so we can accurately tell you when you're saying that you're sponsoring like whether it's supported or sponsored by the city, what you're actually saying, how much this actually costs the city. And so I don't think that we're fully looking at all of that. And so absolutely, we do need to be talking about special events. Our special events coordinator started Monday, and she has already found some ways that we are missing revenue. And is that we had 8 food trucks last week, and nobody paid to be at our food truck festival. That's a missed opportunity. So, many ways to get additional revenue.
Cool. And then one final clarifying question. This person would be in the Parks and Rec department,
Yes.
not the economic.
No,
Right.
no, but of course we would work with Paul, of course. But I also feel like our department needs to work more with our business districts. We do when it comes to special events, but those are missed opportunities as well for our department.
This person is going to need to schedule, you're gonna need to maintain, you're gonna need to hire the plumber to come fix the thing.
It seems like there's enough talent in the food service industry that you'll be able to find someone.
I think that,
Yeah.
I don't think that this will be one of those jobs that folks, like, I'll have a hard time finding.
Thank you. I'll hold it for that.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about this. I think it's wonderful. I think that this is, the Thrive, this is placemaking in itself, just to get this going and to have high quality food service for public parks. I mean, we can do better than just pizza, bad pizza, because we really do. James Park really have nice food, and it can become a placemaking event in itself. And so I think, I would advocate, and I do think this job will many times pay for itself many times over. I think will be an overwhelming amount of work for this job year round. So I have no problems with that. I think it's really important that somebody does know Evanston well and understands the population and our local businesses. I also think it's an amazing opportunity to promote and support our local small businesses through this. I would advocate, Lisa, to your point a little bit, I would like to see us start getting our feet wet right now to test the waters, but I also know that we do have to, especially at the Arrington Lagoon, this has to be done right. We can't possibly do this and have it fail. I'm very sensitive to the neighbors that live nearby. And so I would like to see us, I don't know if on the 28th we could do suspend the rules and do an intro and action and move quickly on this and see if there's any way in the fall we could get somebody to try out a few weekends, maybe like at Arrington. And I also think if we can start this fall, and at other places as well, but if we can get started, we can then see that person who's overseeing it can really get an idea as to what needs to happen so that when we come back in the spring and the summer, we really can move into it as quickly as possible. But I think to wait and have that all kind of roll next spring or summer, I agree, would be too long. So I would advocate that we move very quickly, and if we can, move forward with intro to action after 28th, I think that would be
Point of
the way to
information.
go.
It's one thing, employer coordinates.
Yeah, it's just be a resolution.
Right, so.
Pardon me?
This would just be a resolution, so there wouldn't be intro and action, it's just a resolution.
So we could, on the
We can, sorry, let me put this down. So we had talked about, is this going to be part of the budget process, we need to amend the budget versus using, we have to talk about the funding sources. Is it going to be ARPA money, like I don't think we've figured that out, I think we were going to do a budget amendment or a budget request. So you have, if we come in August,
Just say 13,000 on the convention fees.
there you go.
So you hire us
Seriously,
back.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, let's just start right away.
So you can move that right away, and then we do the hiring in the fall, and you only have 3 months of the year, this year for the budget amendment, and the next year just add to it. Is that what it is?
Councilmember Wood.
Yeah, that was kind of my question, but just to clean it up a bit, so this is, are we gonna see this back at the Economic Development Committee next, or it's going to council?
We wanted to socialize it with the committee. This isn't the place to approve a budget amendment like that.
No, I know.
We wanted, the timing of this is just played out,
Okay.
we're lining up perfectly with this meeting.
And then the last question, especially for the lagoon, but I would say that there'll probably be some other examples of this. Because those are like permanent renovations, I would hope that, they can come back to this committee before they make any permanent changes, and maybe that goes without saying, maybe that'll have to happen anyway. But I don't think that space as it is today is very functional. And I think when we're purchasing furniture, but certainly making permanent changes to public spaces, that I hope this is the venue that we can go back, that you can feel comfortable coming back to, so that we can wait.
Is it here or APW, but?
Or APW, I'm on them all, so
Right.
either one.
Mayor's also,
Yeah.
so we did reach out to a local architect to take a look at what it will take to bring the, I keep saying bathroom, but the little kitchen up to code. Remember, that's just like a little warming kitchen. His suggestion was, maybe we talk with the council longer term and talk about changing the format, the layouts here, pushing the bathrooms west, moving the kitchen east, and then having the dining option. Of course, that's gonna cost thousands of dollars, and we can talk about that longer term, and that's not accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish in the short term. But yes, we would go to APW for that.
I mean, I think somebody said before that we're trying to stay away from half measures, so let's see what it is.
Sure.
Like, because thousands is not scary. I don't know if you spoke on that.
It's not millions.
Exactly. It's just hundreds of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
But even that, I mean, this, again, let's not do half measures. Let's at least see what doing it well would require. Because that's what I suggested at one of our last meetings. And then also had an opportunity to go, I've been there before, but never really looked at it in that way. And after I saw it, I came out with that same feeling that we need to reconfigure this a little bit. So let's just do it.
So from a staff perspective, if I may, this conversation is very different and very high energy compared to what we talked about several years ago, where we were afraid to talk about this. So clearly there's, I'm bringing this up not just to gush about it, but to say, thank you for saying that, because that gives us the courage to actually bring forward bigger ideas on this.
And again, that's not to say that we don't plan interim events. That's different than putting a hold on getting an architect to see what it would look like to really develop the space in the way we need to.
Thank you.
It's not a landmark, is it?
I've got to be honest, I believe it is.
Yes, I
believe it's a landmark.
Yeah.
So any changes to the interior would be okay as long as it doesn't impact the exterior.
Yeah, I would say interior is just
Interior is
it's
fine.
fine. And that's all we're talking about.
I
Yeah.
remember it was a landmark.
I will, because it's part of the vote to move forward because of the landmark status.
Sure. Paul, to your point of sort of the change in tone, while not on council, I'll just say that I think as a community, we need to be encouraging our the team at Evanston to take risks and be bold. Public works, parks, economic development, Evanston touts itself as a progressive community. Well, we should be progressive in all ways. In Evanston, the tagline of progress without change, that ain't moving the needle in Evanston. And so I think we need to be a little bolder than perhaps we have in years past. So bravo. With that, we don't need to vote on this. right?
No, we're gonna,
Okay.
we'll work together to do something in August with the city council.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Thank you. The next item is this is the foot traffic recovery project.
Second.
Hi, Council. My name is Elena Hubert. I am the intern in the Economic Development Department for the summer. Thanks to Paul, Katie, and Neil for having me on. It's been great. But here I compiled some data using a analytics software called Placer AI that uses triangulated cell phone data to look at foot traffic in the area. It is just location-based data, so it doesn't have any personal information, no data privacy issues there. I'll just give you a quick overview. Looked at all the business districts, especially the new one, West Village. Just looking at COVID-19 recovery, we're seeing that compared to other areas in the region, Evanston is really on pace for recovery. We have about 91% recovery in terms of the amount of retail visits today as compared to June 2019. The coloring is a little bit messed up on here, but only with like Winnetka and Morton Grove are doing any better than us, so I think this is definitely a good point here. If you look at it by district, there's a Winnetka and Morton Grove, you can see, and Lincolnwood also. So if you look, it's a little bit discolored. If you look at it on your computer, it's probably a little bit more clear. But then I looked at recovery by district, looking at the year over 3 years, so now compared to 2019, what the visitation data looks like. So for districts like Noyes, West End, Hill Arts, we've seen a lot of recovery there. I think this has something to do with student traffic, people being back on campus, people visiting. And then when you look at, districts like Central Street, downtown Seba, that have seen a lot of closures and everything, we're seeing issues there. I'm not going to go directly into every business district, but if you look at the presentation yourself, I've looked at the visitation figures, kind of what businesses are seeing the most traffic in certain areas, so you can kind of postulate based on that. This is kind of COVID recovery broken down. So there's a little line between West End and West Village. Above that, we're seeing 79% COVID recovery. This is a little bit worrying looking at the fact that downtown is entirely comprised by this region. Obviously, this is our biggest hitter in terms of businesses, so definitely something to look at there, and I encourage you to kind of look at the data that I compiled based on that specific district. But then looking at West End, West Village, Main, Dempster, Howard, we're seeing 99% retail recovery from COVID. These are very chain-based areas, so I think it's kind of natural that there's recovery there.
Where's the line again?
So it's a little bit faded, but in between West End and West Village, there's a street. I think it's Main. I think it's Main, yeah. It's just the zip code division, yeah. So
It's zip code.
yeah.
Zip code.
Not Evanston. So, but Placer can essentially look at zip code and above in terms of COVID recovery. I looked at like the visitation data and did comparisons there, but for full COVID recovery, it's kind of on the larger scale. I'll just show you kind of one business district that I looked at, and then from there you can look at maybe districts that are in your wards or anything like that. So this is Central Street, very family-based businesses. So this is a hexagon heat map. This uses the triangulated cell phone data that I talked about and looks at where people are traveling. This is specifically for visitors, so Placer is able to tell whether you're a resident or an employee or a visitor based on if someone's in an area from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., they're probably a resident, employee, like 9 to 5, something like that. So these are all visitors.
So a student, not here, but like an ETHS students at school would not show.
Not at school. Yeah, they'd be considered like a resident, I guess, in that area. And I think that does tell you, who's featuring businesses in general. But if you look here, top right, you've got the chains. Obviously, Dunkin', Office Depot, Whole Foods have seen high traffic. But I mean, look at small businesses on the lower half. We've got Jilly's, Hume. They're seeing comparable traffic. I think that says something about Evanston residents' kind of commitment to the local businesses. I'm not able to specifically triangulate which businesses are getting more customers compared to other ones since it is like location based. I think you can kind of assume which might get more based off of what type of business it is. Like a retail compared to like an auto shop, something like that. But you can definitely look at this to see kind of what businesses might need help in your district. Looking at like visitation data for Central Street, they're on the higher end in terms of how many visits they've had in the past year. Downtown has about 6 million, West End has about 9 million if you want comparisons there. So 2 million visits since July 2022, 375,000 visitors, 6 annual visits per person. You can kind of multiply those two corners together to get the 2.2 million visits. But we're seeing a lot of people coming down to this area. Usually for like downtown, it's about 3 annual visits, so this tells you that there are loyal customers in the area. They're also spending about 2 hours there, so it's definitely a notable time if you're visiting a certain area. And you know they're not residents, so they're coming to this area to do business, I guess. But you can see in the middle, I've kind of looked at what the growth has been. So Central Street hasn't seen high growth since the last year. It's -1%. I would say this isn't, that big of a deal. I think it's -0.6% is the actual data. I think it's just that's Little Bake Shop closed, only a medical office, and you can kind of look at the specifics based off what you know about the area. So I don't think that's a huge thing to be worried about. We have seen a decline since COVID, -3% visits year over 3 years, but I think a 3% decline is not something to be totally worried about, but it will tell you kind of where to pinpoint anything. And then I kind of gave an overview of the audience, looking at basically who's coming here outside of residents and employees. Central Street specifically, the median age of 38 is definitely on the higher end. Usually if the median age is around 32, that tells you that a lot of students are going there. As a student myself, I can say that I don't really frequent Central Street that much, but look at that if you want to see kind of where students are going. We also were able to look at census data to tell kind of what customer segment someone comes from. So here in Central Street, we're seeing, mainly upper high income couples, young singles. Can't really pin down whether that's college students or not. You can kind of guess that based off of the median age. And then just starter families. You can also look at the median household income, which is $106,000, definitely on the higher end. So if you want to look at this kind of business district by business district, I went through each one. I figured I didn't want to, waste your time today, but definitely look at the districts that your award is in. Everything it might really interest you. In the end, excuse me guys. In the end, I linked a spreadsheet where I have all the specific data for each district. So that's all the numbers in terms of demographics, visits, things like that.
Is there a summary table there or no?
A summary table.
Can you look at the summary table here?
Yeah, let me pull it up. This is simply a Google Doc, nothing crazy, but yeah, this is, so for Central Street, the customer segmentation that I did where I said like wealthy couples, things like that, it's from some sort of like customer marketing software that does it themselves. So this isn't like something that Power Elite is like a specific grouping, but that's who they market a certain area to for businesses. So yeah, I kind of did metrics there. Noise, Central Evanston, downtown. Again, I tell you how many visitors live within 3 miles of downtown. That will tell you like walkability, things like that. So definitely a lot of valuable insights in here about kind of who are going to what areas. So yeah. Any questions? Yes.
This is super cool. I'm wondering how much this service costs, and can we do it
Well, Katie's going to back me up on this. We have a subscription to Placer.ai. This was an idea that I believe Katie generated 2 weeks ago, asking Elena to put together, and I think she did it in like 5 hours. It was like, she's like a human computer. I know I'm exaggerating. But yes, the short answer is yes. We can start building off of this and have a regular stream of different kinds of reports. But I can't express how much I appreciate what Elena's done here. She's really kind of awakened us to how we can use the system and did it in a really quick way. It's really impressive.
Yeah, good work. I would be interested in comparing business district to other business districts,
Yeah.
so we exchange views.
Yeah, I can just, so I'm gonna get a full hexagon heat map if possible. We had it by district so you can see what businesses are most trafficked for all of Evanston at Councilmember Newsom's request. I will say the scale is definitely different downtown compared to Central Street, so it is helpful to look at business
Like
districts.
right downtown is a different number than.
Yeah, so it's like, it might be weird shading and stuff like that, but I will send that to all of y'all once that is prepared.
I'm also wondering, to your point, perhaps in addition to the heat map, just having, I was picturing a spreadsheet where you just have, the different districts and then the metrics so that we can look across and understand sort of at a glance what they, what the ranges are across districts.
Yeah,
It would just be compiling that, it would be one table. I think it would be a nice extension of the really nice work that we did.
You mentioned the student demographic.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in looking at where the students are going,
Yeah.
or at least, I don't know if they're actual students,
Yeah.
but if age is, we could be a placeholder for students.
You think we can?
Where are
So
they?
yeah, so they kind of geo-fence those points of interest, so what we can do, and they have in their software visitor journeys, so you can look at either a district, a specific property, any really geographic area that is geo-fenced in, but you can look at Northwestern and track their visitor journeys to find out where they're going, where they're top. So we started to pull this a little bit, we just didn't have it to share, but we certainly can share that with you guys.
And I think, kind of regular monitoring of this type of data is gonna be really informative as we evaluate the impact of destination businesses and anchor businesses.
Yes. We are going to be updating the reports that we include in your packet are so outdated in scale. So we're gonna start building like a dashboard that has this kind of data on a regular basis.
And whether those businesses are live theaters, for example, or movie theaters, I did notice, like, it was kind of conspicuous in its absence, not a lot of heat around the movie theater.
Yeah.
Well, this is also a year-long data, correct?
Yeah, it is year long. I think AMC
So
opened
it's
It
probably
was
measured.
year to date, they were open. So, right, having this level of visibility allows us to have informed data. Yeah, really happy to see this report.
Thank you very much.
Right, so Alina's gonna work on the spreadsheet right now.
Thank you, this is good work.
All right, our next item then is Edison Drive's prioritization matrix update.
Thank you. Councilmember Burns, you want me to kick it off or you want to do lunch?
Kick it off.
So last time we met, we spent a lot of time discussing the building of the tool and the various column headings that we wanted to analyze. And if you recall, we had discussed possibly bringing it, this was in May, we talked about bringing it to the June meeting. We canceled that meeting, we're here, the July meeting, and we're still not ready to prioritize. And that's not a negative thing. Councilmember Burns and I have been really going through the plan, fine tooth comb. We think we've got it ready to go. In terms of the analysis, particularly, I don't have the column labels, but the columns that are called action purpose, action category, and sub-action category. That took a significant amount of time for us to go through and make sure we have them classified properly. And what we want to do for the next meeting, we hope, and Councilmember Burns, you can help me on the timeline, is that we'll be able to share this with you within the next 2 weeks. Let me take one step back. I'm working with Laura Biggs and maybe others in the organization to assign some costs to some of the infrastructure and some of the other aspects of the plan. I'll get some estimates for website development and those types of things. So you'll have a really strong sense for how much different things are going to cost, because cost is an important factor, because we have $3 million that needs to be spent in a short period of time. So we should know what things are going to cost so we can use that ARPA money to potentially spend on the more expensive items. So that's really important. And then I want to make sure that we're able to, in the event that you're not comfortable going through 175 lines of data to score it, that I can come up with a technique where we can roll it up into categories and you can give some feedback. It would be great if every one of you could go through these, and it will take, I tested this before, I told you it takes about an hour to an hour and a half for a guy who knows what's going on, like deeply. Like you may not have as much detail, it may take a little longer. So I want to have that option for you, because maybe you don't care as much about, like I'll give you an example. If we're talking about putting banners, like tomorrow, there's banners at the corner of, Orrington and Church. There may be a line item that says that. But there's like 10 other districts, 6 other districts that also have banners. So is that particular intersection a high priority for you, or do you just care about banners as a whole? Right? And that's just a kind of easy example, and that will save you a lot of time. And that's how I would like to set this up. Time is of the essence. I mean, I think we can get through some, if we can get to the next meeting and make sure that we're scoring this, and I promise Member Panisi that we will get it to you well in advance, not the Monday before the meeting, so there's time to spend with it, and then you can also ask questions. And also as a reminder, we talked about inviting our SSAs to participate in prioritizing, and I want to make sure that that's still a priority for you. And are there other groups? Are there particular, we want to talk about adding particular residents or opening it up? I mean, that becomes a lot more complicated, but if we could narrow it into our business districts and you, and also, one last thing, gamifying. We talked about, I think it was your idea, Councilmember Wynn, limiting the number of top, you only get 1-5, or maybe I was thinking every one of you gets like one item that's your number one thing that you have, that you want to do, that's your star, and the rest of them can score any way you want, and we'll average it out. So there's different ways to do it, but we'll have that entire, not the rubric figured out before we send it out. I think if I can get 2 more weeks, Councilmember Burns and I want to finalize, and sir, what else would you say? Because I've said a lot.
Yeah, just trying to determine what the costs are. It's something we're working on. I sent you an email earlier today saying if you had an opportunity to crunch the data on vehicle and pedestrian accidents.
No, so one of the questions, Councilmember Burns, that we talked about during the process was where are a lot of the recommendations around safety, right? Crosswalks, curb bump outs. So we want to compare that. We want to use at least vehicle pedestrian crash data and compare that to where they're recommending the curb bump outs and crosswalks to see if they align. And that might be another data point that would motivate you to want to do the project. Remember, this is a placemaking project, but we can serve like multiple ends here with this plan. So the short answer is no, I haven't crunched it yet.
And then we may want to add, similar to TIF, a CIP eligible column.
We'll do that, yes.
And then someone mentioned that they didn't see events, a lot of events. And so we also have a section in here where it talks about either recommendations that need work, like they require further discussion, or something that Paul feels between him and his staff they work on internally. I think many of the events fell under these work because they weren't really specific. The recommendations were like, yeah, we can do events downtown in Fountain Square, but what types of events, you need to know that to determine costs.
Right.
So one thing we talked about is, at least under those items, just sending those back to the SSAs and to the business districts to provide more context around what type of events you're interested in so that we could put costs on it. I don't know if we'll be ready, to do that by the time we score. I guess it depends on when we want to score them, but we don't know what type of events people want to do.
Correct.
It just says events.
I want to reinforce what you just said and add to it. Events are a really important aspect of Thrives. Like the foundation of Thrives is about placemaking. Placemaking includes a lot of events. events, not just infrastructure. So we're not gonna have a line for every district that says event, 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 right? We imagine there's going to be many more events. And I keep going back to Councilmember Kelly's idea, one of the rainiest days I've ever experienced in downtown Evanston, we were standing under scaffolding, you were there too, talking with local residents about what kind of events that they'd like to have, music events. Just gotta get that going. There'll be many of those. The Chamber of Commerce is looking to do events to generate revenue for their operation. It could be a partner, right? So there's lots of things, and Katie and I are not gonna be managing events, we're gonna have to find partners for it.
The last thing I'll say on that, we can decide to set aside some of the $3 million for events
Yes.
if this body chooses to do that. But I just wanted you to know why you didn't see a lot of potential.
Yes, thank you for.
And that's all.
Other questions?
Yeah. What I think the fundamental question here is, what is this matrix helping us decide?
I had an answer for that. It's directing, really it's directing us to make sure that we're looking, as representatives of the community, that we are allocating the funding to what we believe the priorities are.
And that funding is just the first $3 million?
It's really all of it.
Or is it, like, that's the first $3 million, given this is a 10-year, $100 million plan, or whatever, $10 million.
I hope it's less than 10 years, but let's take what the consultant said as the word. And if it takes 10 years, yeah, we will try to prioritize it that way. But I want to start as soon as possible. Like, there are some things that we're going to start moving on anyway. We're going to create a website. We're going to recommend that the districts update their banners and stuff like that. Like, you know, and we have funding for that through
So,
virtual grants.
We need some immediate, you need some immediate guidance on how to spend this first $3 million.
Right.
But then some ongoing guidance on how to prioritize and everything else. And there's how many different line items?
175.
175.
More.
Right, and again, 5. So I want to acknowledge what Catherine said, that we need to act sooner rather than later, which is a real strong argument for just keeping this simple, not making the perfect be the enemy of the good, and come up with something that's close and act on it. Knowing that in order to get to all 175, that's going to take several years, and things are going to change. And so having us spend our time now going through each of the 175 and ranking them on whatever system is not the best use of our time, because that's going to all change next year, the year after that, the year after that. So what we need is a system that allows us to pull out the highest level priorities so we can spend that $3 million and then inform the discussion moving forward in whatever structure.
I don't feel like Councilmember Burns has a response to this, but if we're really narrowing
That's
it
good
down.
information. I mean, I think either way, we need to score something, because we need something that adequately represents how we all feel, but also how our business districts feel, and community members at large. I think honestly, we just need to hear more about how we can scale it down. We can scale it down. I mean, that's part of the reason why we created the categories, because for you, if you know, placemaking is the most important thing to you, well, you can quickly jump to all the placemaking things on here and just work off of those. And same thing with streetscape and some of the other things that we talked about. So I guess we just need to hear more. That's good information. We can take that forward.
And I will say, from my perspective, and my understanding of placemaking might not align exactly with the intent of the definition in the matrix, but I'm more inclined to spend this money on Evanston Thrives on bringing people into Evanston and making Evanston an exciting destination, as opposed to infrastructure. I'm not saying infrastructure is not important, it's critical in its own right, but that's not what Thrives is really focusing on, right?
And I think if we can get agreement, you know, on the committee, if we pull infrastructure, this gets a lot easier. you know, and so I don't know if that's something we wanna try to take some action on today, but honestly, that's the type of feedback we would need in order to get you something that is not gonna take an hour to do.
Correct. I wasn't sure if you were gonna bring this up, and that's why I had this last line highlighted, line 85. And that's, line 85 is the end of the actual business district specific recommendations, where the plan says, for example, replace West End Van, like that's such low, like that's just easy, right? I think of Central Street, there is a plan to do Independence Park, and I think the number one thing we can do on Central Street is help support the funding of the dining edge of that park, because that's kind of an infrastructure play. That's gonna pull diners outdoors to that stretch, one that doesn't exist right now. And that creates the vibrancy and the liveliness, right? And so I'm gonna work with Laura Biggs to talk about how do we fund this dining edge to be part of your Independence Park improvements, so the whole thing gets done at one time versus a multi-year effort, right? So that's how I would look at that. But if we focus on just the business district specific, we really do reduce this thing down to.
Oh, so the 175, you're including the internal stuff too.
I'm including every recommendation.
Yeah, but
So-
even Paul and I talked about, the only thing that I wanted us to evaluate are the business district recommendations. We separated out things that Paul and his team could work on internally and the things that need more work, so that we wouldn't have to focus on those. So I guess, again, continue to provide more information, but I don't think it's 175 lines, it's probably a lot less than that. So that we might be there already, is what I'm saying. Because if you remove those, how long do you think it would take to remove all that other stuff?
Well, I would hope you would all know your districts, right? So I just
Yeah,
probably
I
how.
think it'd be quick.
I'll just second the call for urgency. I mean, at the time we've had this survey, we may have had businesses open and close already. And it's just, the cycle of business is incredibly fast. And there needs to be a lot of urgency to this, and we may find we need to do more than a round. You know, we may get things narrowed down, and then, okay, now everyone agrees that something in this pot is important, now let's, go through it and round it down.
Right, and one last thing, there are some district-wide, or city-wide things that help make sure it floats to the top as well, that are applied in all districts. I'm thinking of just, again, to bring up something that Councilmember Kelly's talked about, grant programs, that applies to everybody, so we need to make sure that we're accounting for those. So I think you would spend, even if it were 2 hours, it's 2 hours of homework, over several weeks, and I hope we're really close to having this ready to launch. So before the August meeting, I'll have to think about the logistics of how to gather your scores and average them together and stuff like that. And we talk about, do we want to know specifically what Councilmember Kuzma wanted, what Burns wanted, or do we just put them all together and average them all out together to see what the scores come to? That might be a way to.
Yeah, I think we should have to put them all together.
Yeah, because that would solve the issue.
But I think this gets back to the police or AI conversation about where are people coming, and that's gonna help inform where we make our investments.
If we wanted
Speaking as one of the representatives of downtown, which is the main line. But actually not, like the West End, the big box stores. Now that matter.
Yeah, but the nuance of a big box store is not your downtown, it's not your, it's not what's gonna drive you.
I was just acknowledging my bias as a downtown.
I got you. This is maybe feedback.
So, when is our August meeting?
Do you remember it? August, I'll say 28th.
I want to say the
28th is a council.
23rd.
23rd.
If the 23rd doesn't work, there is a 5th Wednesday, so we can discuss that today too.
I have one more question for the group. Just, would it be helpful to have any place around AI data along with this, or is that just something you can pull out on your own? Because we can include that.
I think we've got it at this point.
We'll figure out, we can test it as a team, figure out a way to figure it out.
So Paul, if our next meeting, the August meeting is the 23rd, you're gonna want us to work on this and get it back to you with enough time that you can aggregate it and then send it back to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's,
That means we could.
That means you
that needs to be
So,
correct.
would it make, would it,
Right.
I'm just throwing this out, would it make more sense for us to use that 5th Wednesday in August?
I would leave that up to you. I think Councilmember Burns and I, when we looked at this last fall, we were really close. Yeah, it's just,
You're really close.
we're really close. I think it's just, there's a few things
It's
that
a
take
little
a
crushing. I would say just allow, because once he gets out there, I think we'll get through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Let's just allow the time we need. If it's, we can push it, if we need to push it a week or whatever it is, whatever you're saying now. I don't have all the dates in mind. What are we saying about the first, fifth, and fifth? What are we saying?
We're saying the 23rd is the next meeting.
Okay.
And then there's a 5th Wednesday on August 30th where we could
Oh, I see.
push it
We're
another
looking
week,
at
it's an extra week.
schedules.
Yeah,
Is everybody back in town? School starts back up, so.
Right. Could everyone meet on the 30th? That, which is,
I mean, on the 30th instead of the 23rd?
At 6 p.m.
yeah,
Uh,
okay,
30th instead of the
I'm
23rd?
good.
yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, okay, because that gives us a little, you
Yeah.
all a little bit more time.
Great.
And gives us, yeah. Okay,
We use that time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the extra time.
okay, good. All right. That concludes all the items for our discussion, so our regular communications are here. And Paul, did you say that you're gonna be changing some of these?
Yeah, so we clearly need to modernize how we're presenting things, we need more graphic oriented, and that's part of our short-term plan. I think we have, Elena leave? Yeah, she ran out of here, she did. So we only have 2 more weeks, I think, Elena. She's been amazing, but she's also been inspiring to think about things that we can do in terms of freshening things up. And I'm hoping that she'll have enough time to help set up, and Katie's amazing with this too. Like we can, but you deserve better data and better dashboard information, as does the community. So we're not going to give you a long list of vacancies. And, I mean, we maintain it if you want it. We can always give it to you. But what we'd rather do is have here's a vacant storefront. Here's the square footage. Here's the contact information. Here's the data you need, and we can share that with brokers and things like that, just so you know. That's how we want to do it. So you'll see changes not next month, because I've got to focus on this other stuff, but over the next few months.
Okay,
Good, I still like seeing this.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
great.
do too.
We'll
Give us,
Yeah.
We'll include it. We'll
Yeah.
include it.
Yeah.
It's just, it just feels like.
press is gone, so it's not as important maybe to point this out. Can you pull up page 108 of the packet, which is the first page of data? Yeah, it was a business opening to business closing. Look how much longer the business openings list is than the business closed.
But the
A lot
majority of those
lot
are
our
home
base,
based,
right,
yes.
they did like that, was, hey,
Yeah,
kind of reaction. So, yeah, that would be nice to have, the home base data pulled out so you can compare the other stuff. Having this information available is.
Yeah, I mean, we have in the past also like pointed out like there was X number of home base versus bricks and mortar.
But
Yeah,
I think that,
we can also map it, you
You know,
know.
a number of our home base become bricks and mortar
Yeah.
over time.
and one specific question on, the Ridgeville Tavern.
It should be Tapville, should be
That was what I was asking.
Oh.
original. Yeah, we need to correct that.
Okay.
Okay, Ridgeville is still open.
At Tapville.
Yeah, okay.
I
Loud
was
and
like,
clear,
both of them
Tapville,
closed, I saw that
not
too.
Ridgeville.
And I saw my husband, I'm like, oh, Ridgeville just closed now too.
That was, that should be the tap.
It should be Tapville.
Yeah, okay.
I hated that there was Tapville and Ridgeville next to each other, and they all went at the same time. Thank you for pointing that out.
Quick question in the comments. Is there anything that your team needs in order to implement, Evanston Thrives? You know, we talked, earlier on about, about staffing for the event space, and I am of the opinion that you probably do need additional staff to do this right. Was that you said that was an intern you was here before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elena's gonna work for Deloitte in like a matter of days, right?
Yeah.
So she's not gonna work for us.
But honestly, like, Chelsea, I say this. I think that data, I think cities that aren't using that data, and I have to speak straight because I don't want to waste much time,
Yeah.
that are using data in that way and finding ways to build on it are really behind the curve, just honestly. BD's not here, so I'm speaking to a friend. And so the fact that like we're just now getting into it, and it's also because of an intern and also Katie's leadership is a little troubling because I want to continue it. But it's like, how do we not only like use it at a baseline level, but use it the way some cities may be using it who are much further ahead than us. And I just have to say that because
That's,
yeah,
well,
and that's why I had the question
So
given.
I would challenge you to show me data that other cities are beating us on this. I mean, there's bigger cities that are probably ahead, which means it's a resource thing, right?
Yeah. And that's why I'm asking you just straight up.
Yeah,
like,
we
you
jumped
need
on-
more.
No, and I'll tell you. So we jumped on Placer.ai. We've been, this is our second year. So we were at the forefront. However, just carving out the time to learn how to use it and analyze it, that's taken us a little time. Katie's been really good at it. And then when we had that additional resource, and we didn't know what skill level Elena had, right? So we said, can you do this? And she ran with this report, and it was impressive. And again, it is inspiring. I would say, again, I'm not trying to be defensive. And I don't take what you're saying in the wrong way, because you and I, we have conversations about this. We're ready to do this. The question is, when we go out to find a staff person, because you've already approved a staff person, city council approved another staff person. We're gonna bake that into the job description, okay? Like, that's gonna be part of what this person has to
So
do.
beyond the three, you proved three, there's one more?
We're gonna have 4,
Okay.
okay? And then I think based on this experience, we'll try to find an intern, and maybe Elena will do a fall internship, I don't know. But we'll get back to what we used to do pre-COVID, where we'd have a master's of planning from UIC, University of Illinois Chicago, would be on the team. And just by the nature that they are 20 years old, they're gonna know what to do. And I see, I get around with Councilmember Reed, but the minute that there's a technology issue, I see him like boom, 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 and then 30 seconds later, something's broadcast on the screen, and there's just a natural ability. So the short answer, and once again, I'm blabbing away here, is that yes, we need a staff person to help. Now the rest of the events and I think primarily events, we're not going to do that on our team. The question is, who's going to do it? And we either hire a production company, which is what I think we need to do generally anyway, because a lot of the events we do are very low quality. We get people out, they have a little fun, but it's not that great, we probably don't come back. If we can elevate the events we have, better music, better infrastructure, not plastic tablecloth church tables, but like booths or like fold out metal cargo container things that are hip that designers can help us with. That we're going to have to spend a little money on advisory. We're just going to have to.
I think the reality is that like everything we do in economic development, if you do it well, leads to revenue.
Correct.
So somebody said earlier, like it'll pay for itself. I think that applies to, most, if not everything that your team does, which is why if there's an area that we need to shore up and make sure you have the staff you need, like it's your team.
Right.
Because Placer.ai is like maybe a new thing that's going on. But trust me, that type of geofencing capability has been around for a while. We've been using it in politics for a really long time in campaign management. But the difference is that if you don't have a staff person that's like dedicated to going out, seeing what those opportunities are, working to make sure that the team is like not only aware of it, but they understand how to use it, it won't happen.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that I've just felt the most about this city is it's run. It doesn't feel like it's truly data driven, and I'm working with other staff, about even on the softwares we use, and there's so much that we can do better And I don't think it's our staff's fault. I just sometimes think it's not enough people to work on this full time. Like we have enough staff to like just run the ship and make sure it's continuing to sell as it is today. But I say this over and over, it doesn't seem like we have enough firepower to take on special projects, which we've talked a lot about today. I
We
just,
don't, but we also have.
I want you to
council
feel
now that's-
comfortable to
Right, the
ask for
council
those
is
things.
open to doing this.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we have to.
Right, there's a drumbeat about data in most of our meetings, coming from the fifth ward and coming from the eighth ward. I hear it, so we need to start reacting to that, and being kind of more.
Because Wilmette shouldn't even really be our competition if we're doing it.
Say that
Now, Wilmette shouldn't be our
Oh, I
competition.
know, see,
If
they're
we're
not.
firing on all cylinders, like
That
they should be
frustrates me.
comparing us
No,
to
it's-
way better place than Wilmette. I like Wilmette, but like that shouldn't even be.
I
I
don't-
think
I
we'll
don't
know
mind
where we are when we're no longer being prepared with Wilmette.
But I'll
Yeah.
tell you, like, I am hearing about people that are moving from Evanston, they're bypassing, or moving from Chicago, bypassing Evanston, which we used to be the receiver, and I'm sure
Yeah,
we
yeah.
still are, but they're bypassing Evanston and they're going to Wilmette, because Wilmette is perceived as, you know, the schools, the downtown is thriving, you've got a really nice cluster, you've got a beautiful beach. So we can say all we want about, you know, this and that, but we need to, you know, we need to be, intellectually honest about sort of what our neighbors are doing and what they're doing well and where we're missing the boat. And so, but on the events piece, isn't that what the SSA managers do? Like, they manage the
Well,
events, so that.
that's my point. They do events, they do them with a limited pot of money, and they mostly do it DIY, right? So again, it ends up being, let's just be really honest, you've been to these events, you spend an hour, you go home, like, it's just not something that you feel great about going back to. And there's
But
exceptions.
then shouldn't we be engaging our SSA managers and saying, how can we lift the bar on these things? You know, and find out what, you know, maybe it's a money thing, but let's just sort of challenge them to, it seems like it's something that they should own.
Right, we could talk about this a separate time
Yeah.
as an agenda item, because I really think it's important. But it's funding,
Yeah.
and then it's resources, because now you have one SSA executive director, and he had a staff person. And they're running, you know, they're doing constituent services essentially to small businesses. So they do one a month events. They're doing sidewalk sales or a DJ. That's stretching a really thin, plus they have to pay themselves, right? So that's the other thing. They were in fact designed to be event marketers. I mean, it was kind of FMARC was marketing, and that was really about doing events for retail businesses. That usually means sidewalk sale, wine walk, craft mall, all those phrases that drive me crazy. But those are the things that they do, and the businesses love them. That's not enough. That's like a really hyper-local, people that are already going out anyway might spend a few more extra dollars. Like we're talking about, let's shut down the streets and have whatever music festival that Councilmember Kelly's talking about. Let's do a Chris Kimball style market in Fountain Square with really cool booths. Let's project digital art on our buildings that's moving around that people are like excited to come see. There's like a bunch of things we can do. There's a bunch of artists that are ready to help us, by the way. I spoke at the Visitor Art Council.
I was going there too.
Oh, okay, I'll stop, because let's have another
Yeah, I
voice talk.
think 2025 is gonna be the whatever anniversary of the Arts Council. So there was some discussion about having a big, well,
Right. So it's not just I keep pointing out the window because the stuff's happening out the window. The white tent booths of people selling wolf paintings and, no offense, I mean,
No, that's what the lakefront market,
it's just not that anymore. It's something else. I don't know what that is, and I do worry. So I am aging out. At some point, old man Zelmazak has to move on. But the point is, it's not. I know enough to know that it's not the White Tent Festival anymore. There's something bigger and better out there that is driven by Gen Z, some younger Gen X, millennials, that are going to bring some real vitality to these events. Music is a big part of it.
When Mecca Music Fest was it?
High
Drove us up there.
Music, High Park.
Right. So we have the original fest, which is, or sorry, the sorry, the Space Festival, tell me it's
Not a space.
Not a space, right, so of course, like, because like, we wanna work with, everybody's calling space out there, right? So we should be part of the fact that we're the homegrown.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to clarify to say if, what I meant by Wilmette is beating us, and if they aren't certain things, they shouldn't be. And the reason why I say that is if you talk to old schoolers, not only people that lived in Evanston, but in Park Ridge and all around, they all came here to Evanston growing up. All
Yeah,
of them.
right.
Like this was the place to be. So I just want you to know that's what I meant.
Yeah.
We
It's
need
like
to
the career-
reclaim that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Right, but I mean, like Space does concerts in the street in Wilmette. We have not been able, they are housed here,
Yeah.
but they're doing street
But
concerts.
you heard Audrey today talk about,
That's
Director
awesome.
Thompson talk about her review of her policies. She wants change.
Yeah.
They're hiring an event planner, they're going to be using data tools to analyze this stuff. And they're changing the way they're, this is based on Emerson Fry's pushing them to quickly adopted it, how we approve a project or special events. So you're not feeling like event planners aren't feeling like they're putting us out of our, putting us out to do this. Like, we want them to be here, we want them more welcome. So those kinds of things are really starting to change. We have no choice. And really quick, as a Detroiter, let me just say this. The Koreans adopted, they totally copied American cars and improved the product, right? And then they launched them in the US and sell them cheaper and better in some cases. Now, I don't believe that anymore as an American car driver, but that's what some of our North Shore friends have done, right? So so now we gotta set the next level. That's it, and I'm committed to doing that, and I have energy around it. The work's not done, and our team's gonna grow to help, and we need more than just our team. This team still has to process a lot of governmental things that we can. I see Councilmember Reed has a question.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here, but I just wanted to, there's the Wilmette conversation. Some of the folks are skipping over Evanston. I'm sure all of us on the council have gotten enough emails from folks who are saying that they thought about coming back to Evanston, but they're not because of our reparations program or because of some other progressive thing that we are doing here. And there's an email in your inbox that I checked recently, yeah. And so I do want to highlight there are things that Evanston has, such as our diversity, that Wilmette will hopefully one day will have, but seemingly will never have. And we just also need to really capitalize on that, lean into our strengths.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
I think we're off the agenda now. Can I get a quick update on the business registration launch
Sure.
update?
Can you give an update on that, or is there?
Yeah, but it specifically, what,
So we had met earlier, who was that the new business registration system would, you weren't on the call, that's right. That the new business registration system with all of the potential additional
going onto the civic
identifiers
platform
was
where
going
the, is that what
to be
you're,
launching in July, so that's why I'm asking for.
is it the civic platform,
No,
Excella merge?
So, okay, let me bring some
Some deals
context.
were.
Right, so some context. We have an Evanston business registration database, and we're adding some data to it to
Okay.
right, so we're collecting MWE information, self-identifying, we're not requiring that people submit forms. And then also bringing in potentially LGBTQI, et cetera. That is nearing completion. I mean, it should be.
Yeah, so we're currently, we're working with our GIS analysts, because the idea is to create a master directory of all of our businesses and then be able to categorize them and search them by business district, by ward, by industry type, by Black-owned business or woman-owned business. So but we need all of that information. So previously when businesses registered, we asked them if they were minority or woman-owned business, but that was it. It was a self-identified yes or no. But we're trying to get more granular so that we can have a better database to search for those, but we have to go back and collect it. So our GIS analyst is in the process of mapping what we do have, and then we're sending out information to our businesses to try to collect that additional information so that we can attach it to their records, so that when they're in that map that's being built, you will have all of that information. So like if I want.
No, I'm sorry. Just Go ahead.
But, so ideally, yeah, so we're trying to, it's just a process because we have to reach out to all of our registered businesses to collect that. So it's added, it's gonna be added into our registration, so all new businesses, we will collect it from.
Like already got.
Yeah, we're starting to collect it
New
from new businesses, but we still have to get it. So it's just a process of outreach and getting them to fill out that information so that we can attach
Which
it.
theoretically, if
I
someone
would say-
starts a business in
yeah.
Evanston today and registers the business today,
Correct.
they'll be happy. That's great.
So yeah, and we anticipate, I think within the next couple months, we will at least have the directory built and then kind of we'll add the additional information as we get it.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you. One of the pieces too, that we were talking about data, we wanna make sure we have good data and data that, we call it data integrity. Our GIS person is a stickler for that. He won't, so when we gave him the information, like, he really turned it into a database that we can be confident is accurate. And we're gonna, it's not just about mapping, mapping's a big part of it, but it's really about having a good data set. So, soon. We're doing that all in-house, there's no consultant. The ballroom in this building is now opening, FYI, we talked about that last month.
Yes.
So now getting to start doing weddings and things again here, that's good.
Any update on UL?
UL is planning.
October is last I heard, is that so?
I think it's November now, but they're just taking a little longer to plan their space out. The sign is likely to go up in the next few weeks, but the move-in isn't until November. There is an announcement that they hope to be making soon about a hedge fund that is taking an entire floor of the Orrington building, so it's a new company coming to town. They've signed the lease, we're gonna reveal who it is soon, but they took an entire floor. So slowly, we'll see a return, we don't know if they'll get back to
And the lab building, the Burger King labs?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Evanston Labs.
that is on target to be ready to go in the summer.
So the
And then
hotel.
the restaurant is confirmed, the restaurant is signed.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's, the deal is inked, it's done.
And the garage floor, they're getting Emma.
Sorry, maybe,
It's in Chicago.
I wanna be clear, the hedge fund that I mentioned is taking one floor of 1603 Orrington, which is the office building
Oh,
that UL is. Yeah, that, they'll be with Magnetar and the other.
I see. And so, and what about the building at the Fountain Square? Is that what is that?
That's 1600 Orrington,
Okay.
and that is that's the family office of the Magnetar founders. So there's a foundation there, and then they're still trying to identify two more. There's 2 floors of space available for lease.
So Magnetar is also across the street.
So the Magnetar hedge fund is across the street. Family foundation from the founders, the Litowitz family. I'm sorry to associate Magnetar. It's actually the Litowitz family foundation. They bought the building, renovated it, and have their office there.
It's
So
still
it's-
mostly empty, right?
Yes, it's mostly empty as they try to identify firms to take the
And is
space.
that looking good, like in terms of occupancy?
They have 3 of the 5 floors leased, so I think they're okay.
Speaking of Fountain Square, since we're among friends here, any recent updates on Veterans Memorial?
Can we time out? This is being recorded. We can still.
Yeah, we can meet on that.
Okay, well,
I very quickly wanted to, at our last meeting, we asked for the, for myself and the Economic Development Unit to host 2 town halls regarding the minimum wage. We hosted both of those town halls. Certainly, as a report, there's definitely some skepticism and concern from particularly restaurant owners about eliminating the sub-minimum wage. But the national partner that we have who has researched this and done a lot of work in other municipalities who've implemented this have a toolkit that they've shared with me and that I'm going to be sharing with the business owners and maybe getting together another couple of meetings to go through that toolkit, which shows how businesses can implement eliminating the sub-minimum wage have it have minimal to potentially even positive impact on the bottom line. And so we're looking at that, and their toolkit has been recently considered.
All right, with no further business, I declare us adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.